Wouldn't it be nice to have several thought leaders in your industry know and love your brand? Start a podcast. Invite your industry's thought leaders to be guests on your show and start reaping the benefits of having a network full of industry influencers. Learn more at sweetfishmedia.com.
You're listening to B2B Growth, a daily podcast for B2B leaders. We've interviewed names you've probably heard before, like Gary Vaynerchuk and Simon Sinek, but you've probably never heard from the majority of our guests. That's because the bulk of our interviews aren't with professional speakers and authors. Most of our guests are in the trenches leading sales and marketing teams. They're implementing strategy. They're experimenting with tactics. They're building the fastest growing B2B companies in the world. My name is James Carberry. I'm the founder of Sweetfish Media, a podcast agency for B2B brands, and I'm also one of the co-hosts of this show. When we're not interviewing sales and marketing leaders, you'll hear stories from behind the scenes of our own business. We'll share the ups and downs of our journey as we attempt to take over the world. Just kidding. Well, maybe. Let's get into the show.
Welcome back to the B2B Growth Show. I'm your host for today's episode, Logan Lyles, Director of Partnerships here at Sweetfish Media. I'm joined today by Tony Eades. He is the Chief Strategy Officer for Salted Stone. Tony, how are you doing today, sir?
Good, thanks, Logan. How are you?
I am doing fantastic. I am excited to chat with you today about conversational marketing, some of the impact you guys have seen, some of the tools that you're seeing success with, both your guys and your clients. Before we dive into that today, Tony, I would love for you to introduce yourself to listeners. Tell us a little bit about what you and the team at Salted Stone are up to these days.
Yeah, fantastic. Super excited to be on the interview today. So thanks for including me in this. So originally, we set up I was involved in our agency build here in Australia and New Zealand. We're actually based in Sydney, Australia, hence the funny accent if you are listening in from the... So hopefully everyone understands me, or we'll have subtitles, I think. But we built our agency here in Australia and New Zealand, became a HubSpot partner, so HubSpot being a marketing automation platform, about 4 years ago. Grew the agency to the first Australian and New Zealand diamond partner for HubSpot, which is kind of the highest category for HubSpot, just because we believed a lot in terms of having a marketing technology platform that drives marketing strategy. We then merged on the 1st of July with the American company who are a leading diamond agency in North America called Salted Stone, and hence we're now a global agency, I'd say, of just over 70 people, and I'm the Chief Strategy Officer for the group. And a lot of what we do is kind of end-to-end. We work a lot with clients at the very beginning of the stage around strategy first and foremost, really understanding the bigger picture of what they want to achieve in terms of marketing. Very much a growth strategy as well. So I'm finding more and more, it's not now just about an isolated issue that my marketing needs fixing or my sales team isn't performing. It's an overall approach. Like everything is now so integrated into this complete buyer journey that customers today don't really care whether they're dealing with a salesperson or a marketing person. They're dealing with the brand experience of the organization they're working with.
So you touched on experience there, Tony, and I think that a lot of listeners to this show are obviously in the B2B marketing space, but I think that there's kind of this merger in the way that we approach marketing, whether it's B2C or B2B, in that it's all about the experience of the human on the other end of the line. Would you say so?
In fact, it's an interesting comment, because often when I'm speaking on this subject, we're talking about, lose the idea in a way of thinking of yourself as a B2B or a B2C and start thinking of yourself as a B2H, which is business to human. Because to have a conversation with a prospect or a customer is more human, it's more humanized. And I think there's a number of things we talk about in terms of conversational marketing. It's just this shift in terms of a business model from what we call like a high friction business model, the old school, full service, 9 till 5, buy first, to a more frictionless model, which is a self-service, 24/7, try first, like trial the product, like it, and then buy it. So I think our businesses themselves have changed, and therefore our engagement with our prospects and our customers needs to change to become more of this conversational partnership model rather than I'm a business to consumer or a business to business type of organization.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And you touch on something that I think is very true right now. The script has flipped, right? It used to be, I talk to sales, I pay, and then I get access to the product. Now it is, I try the product, I might even pay before I ever talk to a salesperson about, moving up to the next level. So it's literally in reverse order. So we've got to think about how do we have those conversations when things are happening in the exact opposite direction that we were used to them happening, even just 5-10 years ago, right?
Yeah, 100%. And I think the challenge for businesses today, like in terms of, or marketers today, is just, how do I have those kind of conversations across multiple different channels, like an omni-channel world where people, the buyer journey, the kind of has changed. Like it's not that linear progress anymore where people have a need, they used to reach out to one provider that was first front of mind with them, buy the product, and then away they go. It's now this kind of interactive kind of process where it's up to us to be delivering that right message at the right time to the right person, but with the right information on the right channel. And then more importantly, to complicate it even further, is not to miss a beat. Like if someone jumps on and has a conversation with us on Messenger, they should be feeling the same conversation when they're dealing with a human in terms of reaching out, a chatbot that might be there, or any kind of touch point with the brand needs to be that seamless brand experience.
Yeah. I mean, I forget where I saw this survey, but I know it really resonated with me when I saw this stat. It was about, how much angst it causes users when you have to repeat something to a customer service or customer success rep that you've already provided to someone previously, or you input on the automated system. It's like, I call my bank or credit card company or something, and I put in my account number. And then what's the first thing that the customer service rep asks for? Can you give me your account number? I'm like, well, why did I put it in before? Right? Like we're just conditioned for this frictionless experience. And you touched on, messaging apps and chatbots there as you were talking, Tony. Tell us a little bit about where you see them contributing to this idea of conversational marketing and maybe blurring the lines between sales and marketing, because as you mentioned, it is this omni-channel experience of the buyer pre-sale and post-sale. So where does that fit in? And then we'll get into more, where specific functions are seeing results with those. But I think framing it in how they fit into this conversation would be a great place to start.
Yeah, it's a good question, Lyle, because I think, if we all agree that we've shifted into this conversational kind of marketing, then and reducing friction, then it starts to paint this picture of, well, do we want to communicate with our market in a single kind of transaction? For example, download an ebook and read my ebook. Like there's a lot of friction involved in that, and it's very one-way conversation. So what we found is working very well in terms of creating a marketing funnel as such, or through the buyer journey, is things like, for example, interactive offers. So one of our key clients in the kind of medical kind of technology area use a self-assessment tool at the middle of the funnel for finding out whether people are potentially at risk of sleep apnea. And because it's an interactive tool where people go in and answer a series of yes, no questions, it scores them at the end. It says you're high risk, low risk, or medium risk. It's very, there's no friction involved. They feel it's a self-assessment. We've tested it by having like 10 questions versus 35 questions. The ones with 35 questions have performed heaps better than the 10 questions, even though it's only the first 10 questions that really determine the result. It's just that people feel that they want to give more information because it's more scientific. So that works. And then there's chatbots, or I like to call them right now nurture bots, because I think chat probably in a fully humanized conversational way has a long way to go. Like there's a few chatbots that I've used on certain airlines where it's just frustrating. They don't understand the way you're communicating. Maybe they just don't understand my language. Whereas a nurture bot, and we've got an example that people can have a look at chatbots2020.com. That's if you want to have a look at it, where we've built this nurture bot, which enables you to go through a kind of a funnel process. It's asking you, 3 or 4 different options about what your problem might be. It's giving you some resources that you might find interesting. And at the very end of it, the journey gets you to book an appointment, to speak to somebody, to help you through and discuss, the particular pain point that you might have. That's more of a nurture bot than just an open conversation chatbot.
Today's growth story revolves around search engine marketing. Delphix, a big data platform, had hired an agency to manage their Google ads a few years ago, but they weren't seeing the results they wanted to see. Being such a technical B2B solution, they set out to find a team that could take on their challenge. After countless proposals, they found the perfect fit: Directive Consulting, the B2B search marketing agency. In just 1 week after launching Directive's campaigns, Delphix saw their lead volume double and their cost per lead drop by 60%. I have a hunch that Directive can get these kind of results for you too. So head over to directiveconsulting.com and request a totally free custom proposal. That's directiveconsulting.com. All right, let's get back to this interview.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And I think that lays the groundwork good for folks, because I think some people think of conversational marketing just, oh, that means chatbots, but it's more about this overall experience. And there are different points at which you want to employ these different pieces of technology, from messaging apps to chatbots, or nurture bots, as you call them. I think that's a great way to describe it. I don't think I've heard anyone quite use that term before. And we'll link to that chatbot 2020 in the show notes for folks as well that want to check that out. Tell us a little bit, Tony, about where you've seen some success with leaning into this conversational marketing framework with messaging apps or chatbots. What are some of the things you've seen salespeople and marketers do with this technology?
Yeah, I think just to quickly frame it as well, Lyle, one of the big successes that we found with chatbots, so one of the things with chatbots, which works really well, or nurture bots, whatever you want to call them, is that they work across multi-platform. So when we were talking before about having this conversation across different platforms, being omni-channel, a chatbot can work on a website, it can work on a messenger, so it can work on social channels. So it's easily accessible. So the idea is what we found is the best way to reduce friction is to have a conversation with a prospect or a customer on the platform that they choose, the platform that they want to. So if they reach out to you on Instagram, that's the conversation platform that you continue. You don't try and create friction by saying, no, let's go off to a landing page, or now let's go off to a phone call or an email. So we found, for example, Messenger being a huge growth channel for our B2B businesses, right? A lot of people think that Facebook being more of a B2C. For starters, messaging apps as such, the latest stats that I've seen are there actually, so that the 4 big social networking apps are now being surpassed by the 4 biggest messaging apps in terms of users. So there's more people now using messaging apps as a form of communication connection than they are actually on social. And even on a B2B set, there's like 1.3 or 1.5 probably now billion messenger users on Facebook. But a lot of those are growing now into a B2B kind of space. So B2B companies are using Messenger particularly for things like lead generation, for events. They're using it for customer service, and they're using it even for e-commerce, where people can actually book products. And some examples we found is event that we ran in conjunction with HubSpot, which was a Grow with HubSpot event in Melbourne and Sydney. They used a combination of traditional methodologies as well as a chatbot kind of approach through Messenger. And the results were kind of amazing. For example, the cost per lead between using Messenger versus a landing page was $4.77 using Messenger versus $22.75 per lead using landing page, which was an improvement of a massive 477%. So cost was just amazing. And then in terms of actually click to submission rate, people actually using it, 3.79%, which is about average for conversion on a landing page, versus 11.21% on Messenger. Again, almost a 300% improvement. So we've been seeing these kind of figures happening by reducing the friction and making it easier for people, because they have a phone, they most people, as I was showing those stats before, have access to a Facebook account and therefore Messenger. It just makes it easy for people to communicate in real time.
Yeah. I mean, it's like when you sign up for something and they don't have the option to leverage single sign-on with something with Facebook or with your Google account. Whenever I'm forced to create manually a new profile for something, I definitely think twice before completing that, because I'm like, why isn't this just one click? We're just and that's, a different angle, but I think that the common thread there is that we're conditioned to have these frictionless experiences. It's the Amazon effect. Why can't I return something, at the drop of a hat for no reason and get all my money back, right? And so that affects the way that we approach everything, whether we're a B2C buyer or a B2B buyer. And so taking all of those cultural contexts into consideration as we build the customer experience that our clients are going to be going through, right?
I think so. And I think it's just really, just kind of like looping back to what we were saying before about, the reason this works so well and the results are so well is because that's how the world has shifted in terms of how we want to transact with our brands and our companies. Mm-hmm. Nowadays, the internet gives us that instant information gratification. We can find anything we want, whenever we want, just by Google searching something. The social media platforms encourage us to then share and compare in messenger apps as well. And then this mobile device aspect, which we all have access to, gives us that kind of whenever and wherever dimension. So I think that's why, not only do we need to change the way we communicate by making it easy for people to kind of access us and do business with us, and like you said, like remove that friction, that one sign on, all that kind of stuff, that one click Amazon type purchase, but also really end up having technology on our side. We talked about HubSpot at the beginning. I mean, that's not the only platform, but businesses today have to look at what marketing technology platform works for them, because it's impossible to do this stuff manually. Like, we need to be tracking what we call the active buyer and then delivering what they want when they want it based on where they sit in the buyer journey. And you need technology to deliver that for you. It's data that drives that. It's not a manual kind of feeling process. You need to feed the machine and let the machine do the work.
Yeah. Yeah. On that note, obviously you guys being a HubSpot partner, I know, some of the direction you're going to go here, Tony, but what are some of the tools and technologies, especially for businesses or marketers that are just now trying to lean into conversational marketing? What are some of the tools that you recommend they take a look at and try out for their business?
Yeah, so I mean, you mentioned at the very beginning Drift, which is doing really, really well, especially in the States, in terms of this space. Our preference obviously would be, obviously HubSpot, only because like we've followed HubSpot, we've looked at the market. HubSpot now has developed what they call the growth stack, which embeds conversational marketing in the deck. So last year, HubSpot purchased Motion AI, which is a chatbot platform basically, and built it now into the platform. So you can create, you can have live chat, and you can automate a chatbot to have a conversation whilst live chat's not available, because obviously people do like the idea of talking directly to a specialist or a salesperson, whereas when they're not available, because we're living in that 24/7 world, the automation of a conversational chatbot that's built in HubSpot kicks in. But I think that's the idea of thinking about the whole buyer journey and having one particular platform that can do everything has always been the holy grail, I think, of every business. So I think HubSpot have nailed that area quite well, of being a kind of an everything to everyone type of solution.
Mm-hmm. I love it. Well, Tony, I really appreciate you coming on the show today. I think just even getting into the details of the case study that you mentioned is a great takeaway for listeners to be thinking about how they can lean into conversational marketing and use some of these tools, and why they should be thinking about it and thinking about the entire customer experience. If anybody listening to this, Tony, would like to learn more about Salted Stone and what your team is up to across all time zones these days as a global agency, or reach out to you and ask any follow-up questions, or just stay connected, what's the best way for them to go about doing that?
Yeah, so certainly I'd love to hear from folks and have these chats. I love having these conversations about conversational marketing. But probably Twitter at Tony Eades is my Twitter handle. saltedstone.com. So salted as in the salt pepper, saltedstone.com is where all our information is, blog and all that kind of stuff. So there's a lot of information that we put up there to share. And otherwise, happy to connect with folks on LinkedIn as well, because I do share a lot of any new stuff, thought leadership stuff through the LinkedIn platform.
I love it. Tony, this has been fantastic. Thank you so much for being on the show today.
My pleasure, Lyle. Lovely to talk to you.
Digital marketing agencies have a tough job. You have to stay on top of the latest marketing strategies for your clients and your agency. What if there was a way you could address both at the same time? Imagine your agency putting out content with greater quality and quantity. Envision bringing your clients a turnkey solution for one of B2B marketing's fastest growing media strategies, podcasting. You know all those clients asking for your help with their account-based marketing efforts? Picture being the first to bring them the idea of content-based networking, showing them the proven strategy for breaking into their most coveted accounts. Here's the concept. Sweetfish Media is looking to work with a limited number of innovative agencies interested in a new partnership model. We produce a podcast for your agency. You introduce the power of podcasting and Sweetfish services to your clients. Everybody wins. Learn more at sweetfishpartners.com.